about how many clubs in there. So Northland's a difficult one because it's very similar to some of the South Islands where you've only got a handful of clubs over quite a significant geographical area. But Waitemata, Rodney and Auckland have a number of clubs, have lots of clubs in that area, but it still takes quite a bit of driving to get to the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's where, you've talked about geographical changes, and I think that's probably there's a lot close to us with Franklin that probably should be in Auckland, not in Franklin, because
that might merge up into their own new little area.
Yeah.
And their
now,
own,
like Thames is, they're so far away from anywhere down there. So it's just like, yeah, it's crazy.
And even with that, though, is you say all of that, but then we also have the issues that sometimes, even within those areas, there's groups that want to do stuff together.
Yeah.
Because there are quite a few active times when clubs in Waitemata, Rodney and Auckland want to do stuff together because it's just more convenient that way for these events.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's great. But I have, just so you know, I have invited as many members as I can.
Please do. That
to come to
everyone.
So that we get lots of questions, hopefully.
Oh, my computer has just decided to die, that screen. Great.
That could make for a interesting presentation.
Or is it the internet? No, it's working again. Okay. No, because they're open to everyone. So should we get started? Because we've got 11 now, but people can come in because a lot of the start is already what we've already done. So
okay, I'm going to turn my camera off and then come in when I need to.
Excellent. Hi guys. So thank you for joining tonight. So tonight is our focus on Auckland as an area, but it is open to everyone. So we may have people outside of the area joining us. Can you just mute potentially? I'm just getting a little bit of feedback, but not from me. If you do want to ask a question, just pop your hand up. You're most welcome to keep your cameras on so we can see you. So for those that don't know me, I'm Lizzie, the CE of New Zealand Pony Club, and I have, by the looks of it, 2 board members, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves tonight.
Hi everyone, for those that don't know me, I'm Todd, I'm on the board. I'm the one who's done most of that initial drafting for this to get us to the stage. So if you've got any questions on the Constitution and where we go, hopefully we'll be able to answer them tonight.
Excellent. And we've got Dana. Okay, I think we had.
It looks like she's just dropped off.
Just dropped off. So, yep, thanks for joining us. So, is there anyone here who's not from Auckland, but you're most welcome to stay? Because I think the good thing is, and we were just talking to Kate about this. Hi, Louise. We were just, here's Dana. Dana, if you just quickly say hi.
Hi. Sorry about that. Having a few issues getting on. Welcome to the Auckland area.
Yeah. So this is our 3rd meeting with an area focus, and as you'll go through, you'll find if you come to more than one that you're all completely different. So that is a big thing, and that's why we're doing these areas focus meetings, because everyone is so different, every area. I've worked on all 15 areas and not one of you is the same. So let's get started. So what's on tonight? Our whole purpose of tonight was just to share the process and a timeline for proposed change, recap the proposed constitution, and discuss what your area may look like under the proposal. So this is definitely not us coming to you and saying this is what we want you to do, because we don't know we don't all know your geographic structures. Like, I have to be honest, I have lived in that Whitford, Howick area and worked there, and Central City, but that was 20 odd years ago. So your roads have changed. I used to think that Brookby School by Papatoetoe was out in the whoop whoops, but certainly not anymore. So we are definitely in the consultation phase. So we are looking for feedback from all our members, all our branches, all our clubs and our areas. We need it, and we'll go over that really, really soon. The feedback deadline is the end of May, and we'll really stress that soon because it's going to help us shape the final version. And the final vote on all the changes is going to take place at the New Zealand Pony Club conference in August. I was going to say May. In August, which you all are hopefully aware of, but we'll make sure that we definitely share that with you at the end of today. So the purpose and rationale behind these meetings is we know that when we present a concept, because we've been working on it since August, September, October, November, all of those months, our ideas can come across as being rather abstract, and we really wanted you to see what it could look like and how it could work in practice. We know that conceptual ideas like that could be difficult to vote, so that is why we're really endorsing come to more than one if you can, or you can email me, ring me. I'll have one-on-one sessions with your groups, not a problem. So we're looking at the day-to-day operations, the decision-making authorities, a little bit about event coordination and delivery, if there are other questions you've got, your communication, and how we can support our volunteers through this process. Now, please do ask questions as we come along. Some of it we might say to you, oh, that's coming up soon, but, you know, we don't want you to go away from here still with questions. Todd, handing over to you.
Cool. So the key things on here, why are we doing this? We've been told by the government that this is something that needs to happen, so it's going to be a significant change. The key thing what we're looking at in this round is the National Constitution. This is the governing document for the whole organisation, and it outlines the powers really that are given to the board and what we do, and then it defines as we move down how membership works, how complaints work, how reviews and everything happen, and how the organisation itself is run. What it is not, it isn't the area constitutions, clubs or branches as they stand. So this isn't the one for you, but it will have a heavy impact on what your organisations look like at the grassroots level. If you've attended any of our previous discussions, you'll know there's some key changes that we're looking at in here. The main one impacting on our members is the removal of a layer in our organisation. That's the biggest one, and that's going to result in a significant restructuring. But the key thing that we're wanting to get in here alongside that is we've got to be better as an organisation for our members and our volunteers. We've got to be able to respond to their demands and respond to the fact that it's harder for our volunteers now. We're all time poor. We don't want to be tied up in one meeting every week to sign off and to do the processes. So we've responded to that by the alterations that we're proposing in the Constitution. And now we're wanting feedback from everybody here as to how that will look. Key things we're looking for feedback: the levels, what is appropriate, the membership structure, what is appropriate, the voting structure, what is appropriate, because all of these are going to change as we move through, and we'll go into more detail as we move on. But if you have any questions, as Lizzie said, please contact us. As we get them, we're regularly updating our website with this information. So if things are coming through, that's almost a live document up there. It's getting updated all the time. So keep an eye on that and see questions that are coming up and seeing if they're getting answered. If you have one, ask it, and we'll end up putting it on that board. Lizzie.
Yep, thanks. Absolutely. So tonight this is being recorded and transcribed. So at the end of this, hopefully by the end of tonight, you will have the link to the presentation, you will have the minutes, and any questions that you have had will be, with their answers, will be on that live document. I think just to stress here that when we are voting on the Constitution, we are voting as the Constitution, how it's presented to you. So if there are pieces in that, we've really touched on the structure, but if you have questions about the dispute process, which is part of the Constitution, or the removal of some of our key like the president's role, if you have strong feelings about that, you need to let us know, because when we present the Constitution at the AGM, that is how it's being presented. Because at this AGM, there will be no remits. Remits are the things that change the Constitution, because we're presenting a whole brand new draft to you. So we need to have any feedback as soon as possible. Okay. Got to just find the arrow. So this is the key timeline, and it's a little bit updated from the one on the website, and it changes every meeting we've had. We've added into it because people have asked us questions. So right now we're in May, and our whole focus is your areas and your regions. So we're beginning the discussions of what does your area look like? What are the administrative layers if we go with the proposed 3-layer structure of New Zealand Pony Club? And that's full consultation. One of the reasons it's full consultation is because when I started sitting down doing the numbers, which you'll see later on, it was like I understood my area. I understood where I'd lived, King Country, and a little bit of time in Auckland. But I didn't understand Northland, definitely not Otago Southland. And one of my things is I live in Katikati, but if I want to go and get my hair cut and I look on Google Maps, apparently Te Araha is the closest town, even closer than Katikati, but there's a big massive range in the middle. So it's those type of factors. We also know there's amazing new roads coming up, and so what used to take hours is now cut travel time down significantly. So this is the perfect time. So this is May, and we need the biggest date for us, I feel, is the 5th of June board meeting. Because at that 5th of June board meeting, we are going to look at your feedback and see what the feedback's telling us. Now, I have had questions. Why are we asking every member to do the survey? It's because each member influences how the branch votes and then how the club votes. And of course, at our current AGM, areas get 1 vote and clubs get up to 3 votes. Now, voting is based on the riding members under 25 years. So that is why we're asking everyone to give us some feedback, because we also know that sometimes, well, often, we don't have the correct database details for clubs because you change. I often get emails from people and they'll say to me, please don't send me this. I go onto the database and they're the president or the secretary. So it's really important. Well, they're listed as it, but they haven't held the role for 2 to 3 years. So we really need to get everyone's feedback, and that feedback is telling us, does the membership support the 3-layer change? If it doesn't at that board meeting, then the board have to decide if they're going to change tax. Are they going to be working towards the July date of a 3 layers of NZPCA, or are we going to stick with the current 4 layers of NZPCA? Because on July 1st or thereabouts, we have to send you all the documents for the AGM. So that includes the draft constitution that you're going to vote on. So we don't want any surprises come August the 3rd when we go to vote on the 3-layered constitution and put all this work in, and we've got a finalised document to go, oh no, we don't want that. We want to stay the way we are. So that is why the 5th of June is so important for us. Any questions on that so far, or bits, Todd or Dana? Or anyone else in the room?
I'd just like to reiterate on the timings in here, and the other reason for the focus on this timing is we want to make sure that we have time to get you guys the templates that allow it to be easy for you. So if you don't tell us now what you want the organisation to look like. We won't have time to write it and give it back to you so that you can get it approved. And that's where these ones in these timetables, the 5th of June, the reason it's there is so that we can then come through and draft our national constitution, but also ensure that we've drafted the lower level constitution so that you guys can get them ready for your clubs and ready for you to do, so that you don't have to go out and do all the work. All you need to do is change the name at the top and sign the bottom.
And if you are doing anything like merging or doing a slight change, we'll have a way to support you through our resolution process. That's right. Okay, so I'm up to the 3rd of August. So at the 3rd of August, we are at the AGM. Now, if you are not coming to the AGM, there is no such thing as proxy voting. There is electronic voting though, but I'm pushing the AGM because there's going to be such practical workshops. You're going to leave the AGM, the conference with so many options of workshops. But if you can't get there, we will send out the electronic voting instructions in the July pack. We need every club to vote. Now, to remember to vote, areas get 1, clubs get up to 3, and it's based on what your club members want. So the branch will have to decide if you're a club without branch. If you're a club with branches, you'll have to get those votes up and through. So that's just a normal motion at your normal monthly meeting, like you would have done in the past for like appointing Dana and Todd as board members. So it doesn't need to be a special general meeting or anything, but we have people saying to us, well, do I get a say? Of course you do. You're a member of New Zealand Pony Club. Whatever constitution, being the 3 layers proposed or the previous 4-layer, in August, that constitution has to be submitted to the incorporated societies. As Todd said, we will immediately have whatever layers are underneath as constitutions ready to go. Now, if we are going from a 4-tier to a 3-tier, this is where we'll be starting to need what does your area look like and full support. So we'll be there helping you. If we know on the 5th of June that we're going for a 3-layer tier, of course, at the AGM and conference, there'll be lots of workshops about the process, but there'll also be other things about health and safety and riders without horses, now called Intro to Equine Skills. There'll be lots of real cool practical things. In October, between October and March, it's kind of a sliding wherever you're working on. Clubs in intermediate layer, you'll be in your drafting, you'll be in your submitting, you'll be in your voting because you have to have an SGM to vote on it and all sign it. You'll have to upload it to New Zealand Pony Club for us to check, because only the board can approve constitutional changes. And today I even had one club to come to me and say, oh, but we don't have that in our constitution, we changed that to this. And I was like, when did you do this? So only the board can approve the constitutional changes. So that's really important. So when will the change happen? Someone has suggested like a nationwide change date, like a gypsy date, and that is, we're open for suggestions. That is the timeline. We have had key questions of why didn't we start earlier? We started as soon as we got the the Sports NZ template, just so that you know that. But being a Sports NZ under their umbrella, we had to wait for their templates. No questions?
Remember, if you have any questions, there is a button at the top there. There's raise your hand. You can put that up at any time, and we'll get a notification that you've got a question, and we can jump to you. Or there's always the chat, and you can put any messages you've got in the chat, and we'll answer those as we move along as well.
All right. Well, we've done a great job of this timeline this week. Okay. So currently, New Zealand Pony Club is structured with 15 areas.
Sorry, quick question, Lizzie. Obviously it's good that you're doing these Zooms and everything. I was just wondering if there's a major deviation from the feedback you're getting, and you've got quite a tight timeline between July and the conference. What's your contingency?
So no, we feel confident that between June and July that we can get a 3-layer NZPCA or a previous 4-layer NZPCA drafted and out, don't we, Todd?
This is where it's important that we get your feedback in. So if we get your feedback by the 5th of June and everybody's saying it's 4 layers, that's what we'll put in the Constitution. That's what will be drafted to go out in July. If we get the feedback in and everybody says you must have a precedent, then that's what we'll end up putting in there, and that'll go into the one in July. What we won't, if it's only little bits, then we will be going out in the same way, in a similar manner to how we have. We'll put things out for notification, but most of our updates of that will be released through our website. So we'll notify people on our various channels, but these are your opportunities to hear from us and to raise your questions and to raise your issues to feedback through the website. Because unless you tell us that we are massively wrong in what we're assuming, then we're going to go ahead with the 3 layers. But that's why we need that feedback. Don't sit on it and come to us on the 3rd of August, because we won't have a contingency plan at that point.
I just got a question in from email, and it's not actually from this group, it's from a previous group, but it's really important. And it's about currently about auditing and reviewing under the new structures of the Constitution. So our Treasurer asked what will happen with the auditing in the proposed new structure, because we know it's very, very expensive. We are looking into that, aren't we, Todd?
So I can say that we will be following the guidelines that have been put out by both the Charities Commission and the Incorporated Societies Register to remove the requirement for auditing for the vast majority of our entities. You will still be required to audit when you hit the asset threshold. I cannot remember it off the top of my head, but I feel the only one that's going to fall in the Auckland region will be Papatoetoe. Everybody else will be captured by a review, which means you need a chartered accountant who's independent of your committee to have a look at your accounts and sign them off. So that one there is going to be something that we are going to, and our current Constitution looks at it, it links it, or the proposal in there links it to, for each of these lower levels, links it to the requirements that are going to be in the incorporated societies.
Okie dokie. I think there was just some questions on chat. I'll have a look, or Todd will have a look.
A whole list of them that have come through. So if you want to keep moving through the slides, I'll just have a look at those chat questions.
Okay, fantastic. So, okay, so back to here. So we've got 15 areas, and our current structure has 2 options on the first, second, third, or first, second tier, depending where you're starting. We currently have clubs, and under our clubs we have the branches, and then the other one is that we have clubs without branches. Now you in Auckland area are a mixture of both of those. So I'm just going to go jump to your page here. So here are our areas of New Zealand on a map. I'll give you a few moments to look at that. And by no way does the proportion of your area, actual space, match up completely with your numbers of members. We're very aware of that. So this is a chance. Oh, sorry, I jumped one. For us
Auckland
to really look at those.
on that map.
Yep, you're just there.
It's tiny.
Just there. just there.
Comparatively, geographically, you are very, very small.
Yeah.
Numerically, punch outside above your weight.
Yeah. So, okay. So in your questions that you may have in your areas, and we've just got to really stress these, will your club lose its identity? No, we encourage our clubs to, even in a merger or something like that, retain their names, their uniforms, and their histories. So I've got an example that I know that Wanganui and Petrie and Manawatu West Coast, they merged a few years ago and they are now called Wanganui Petrie. I've also got areas in Northland. There was Awanui and, oh gosh, it's gone now. I have to go back and have a look. And they became Monganui. So they just took a new name in the structure, but they still retained their traditions, their histories, and for a while there, they had shared type of uniforms. Is this about closing clubs or reducing events? No, it's about focusing on the club where your rider goes and does the majority of their pony club journey. And we aim to improve the support and the consistency in what's offered at those pony clubs. A big one, what will happen to your assets? Assets always remain within your clubs, if your branches, and your areas. They do not, the board of New Zealand Pony Club gets to approve where your assets go in a merger or a closure, but they definitely do not come and sit in our bank account unless we are waiting to get them distributed or finding a bank account number. So they stay within your clubs and areas. Please note here, you cannot gift assets outside of Pony Club. It doesn't matter if you have a great relationship with the local something else club down the road. Clubs, assets, and all of your assets, monetary and physical, must remain in Pony Club, because if you think about it, it's the historical build-up of the assets that belong to the membership. You as a member do not actually own that asset. You're like a guardian, a caretaker of it.
So I'd just like to jump in there and just
Yep.
reiterate on Lizzie's text. Remember, under both the Old Incorporated Societies Act and the new one, we are a collection of members that are coming together for a specific purpose. In this case, it's the delivery of pony club activities and events. Anything we do is towards that purpose. And if we're acting outside of that purpose, we're no longer acting in good faith with our organisation. And what you guys need to be aware of, if you start going down that route, you run into issues that you can be acting contrary to the Act. If you do that, you'll also be acting contrary to Pony Club policies and procedures, which puts you outside of our protection. So it's very, very important that if you're going to be doing things and you're a little bit concerned, first of all, you contact Lizzie and you ask the question. But secondly, at the forefront of your mind needs to be, with everything you do, does this action further the purposes of Pony Club? If it does not, you cannot do it. And that includes, hey, I feel like supporting the local A&P show, we're going to give them a donation. That is not allowed with members' money. You can, by all means, you can run a special little fundraising event outside one of your things and have those activities in there, but you cannot use members' money to support the Child Cancer Foundation or Starship Hospital or the Westpac helicopter because they turned up to one of your things, to the equine ambulance. None of those are suitable uses of Pony Club funds. And so that's a legal requirement. It's a hard line. We've just got to be aware of it.
Mm. Okay, will you be able to host events? Absolutely. The everyday running of the club and the intermediate layer remain the same. Events, camps, everything you do, we don't believe should be affected by removing a layer. It might change where they sit in the layer, but we don't think it's going to be an absolute no, we can't help. We can't have it. We are continuing with eventing champs weeks, zone games. There will be little changes here and there, but they were happening already. Why now? As Todd said, it is the time of the incorporated societies change, but also in 2011, I originally got this wrong because Geraldine Ray, the life member, told me that there was a review, and it was in 2011. I went back to the sources, and it was at the time when Pony Club changed from a committee of management to a board of 7 members, of which 5 are elected and 2 are appointed. So on the table of that time was the massive change of the committee of management to a board, and also the suggestion of moving a layer, which was clubs. At that time, that did not get any traction. It was not popular, but they also were working on the board structure, so they decided to park it. So we thought, why not? Because we do get it. We get it from feedback. We always get too many layers, too much volunteer. So through our surveys, through our exit surveys and our surveys, our annual plans, and also through the chatter that we get. This is definitely consultation, and we are following a democratic process. We are definitely not doing this to you. We are suggesting it with you. So you're just answering the questions in the chat, are you, Todd?
Yep,
Okay.
question by question in there.
Okay. Do you want me to read them out, or?
Let's just leave them at the moment. We'll go through them right at the end, I think.
Okay, perfect. Good plan. Okay, so now is the time, thinking of your area. Think about, are the area boundaries still what we need today? I know that in Auckland, that where Papatoetoe Pony Club used to be was in the middle of Howick by the Chapel Road Church, or somewhere around there. I remember riding there, so that's why I remember that. Is my branch or club youth focused and providing for the purpose of Pony Club? And we're going to go to that slide in a second. Does my branch or club have enough members to operate? So remembering here that in our current constitution, it is 15 members, of which, was it 8? In which 8, I've done this so many times, have to be adults. It is inferred that the others would be youth riding members under the age of under 25, and that will definitely be crystal clear in the new constitution that we are a youth organisation and we want to see the youth members. Is my branch or club in the right area? Is it time to move to a different area, or is it time we're absolutely set where we are? So they're really good questions. Opening up to our next slide. So basically here is the purpose of Pony Club, being an education focus, where it begins. Everything in here talks about our members. It's got in there the certificates, it's got events and activities. Now for this benefit, everyone is a member. Even our Riders Without Horses are members, our horse masters are members, our coaches, our adult members, all covered in this purpose of Pony Club.
I'd just also like to highlight that the key things in this purpose of Pony Club is, and everything through here is encompassed by the fact that we are a youth organisation with an educational focus. So we are largely here to develop kids on their journey with their horses, whether that is through ownership, riding schools, or a purely theoretical approach to ownership. But to give them the opportunities to engage with that sort of learning and that sort of environment, and have opportunities to progress and develop along that pathway. And what we are wanting to, and as a youth organisation, when we follow that through our membership structures and our voting structures, we're heavily weighted towards we've got to have youth as that leading point. So to Lizzie's point, if you are voting, your votes are based on riding members under 25. So that we say riding members, it is youth members, whether they are with horses or without horses. But they've got to be, if you're the parent guardian, you are effectively acting and voting on behalf of your children if they are minors. And that's how we get our votes. If you're an adult and alongside, you're coming back and helping out, coaching, assisting, being on our committee, that's great. We need more people like you. However, unless you have a child in Pony Club, you won't really have a vote. And so the key point in here is that we are a youth-led organisation, and we've got to keep that fundamentally in our constitution to make sure that remains. If you want an adult-focused equestrian organisation, then you're looking towards ESNZ or the other ones. But Pony Club, we are here for our youth.
But unfortunately, because they're Pony Club assets, particularly that it's not, and I've had questions about this, can we just pick up and change Pony Club to be an adult riding club and take the assets with us? That would be the same as saying, can I take a rugby club and turn it into a cricket club? So just a bit on that. There's some more questions here. I can't read the questions and talk at the same time, sorry. But
I'll keep over the questions, Lizzie, and I'm just going to answer them as we go, and we'll go through them all at the end, I think.
Okay, so you'll notice that we are not talking clusters at the moment. We're not talking about names and things like that. We're talking about 3 layers. So we're talking about the club layer being the definite one layer and the national body, and in the middle being an administrative layer. So that is what you decide it looks like and what's best for you. So we know that the national body, I'm just going to get rid of that. Sorry, the national body, we set the visions, the values and the strategy for pony clubs across New Zealand. We ensure consistency and standards. We oversee national competitions. We manage the national partnerships, maintain the policies and frameworks, including safety education and the certification pathways for all our members. That includes our coaches as well. Down at the base level, the foundation, this is the club layer, where the riders, that's the foundation of the Pony Club experience. This is where our riders spend their majority of their time. This is where they receive instruction, they work towards their certificates, and they build their communities. Clubs focus on regular rallies, the coaching, and developing safe and capable riders, volunteers, and horses. So in that middle layer, if we look at the middle layer now, this is what we'd be looking at. It's the administrative layer with the governance and oversight. So it acts as an intermediary between the clubs and the national bodies. But remembering, any club or branch can directly come to the national office at any time and ask any questions. We're not going to say no to you ever. But we support that middle layer. The administrative layer supports the local implementation of the national policy. We see it as development and support, facilitating the extension of riders beyond the club environment, including area champs, training camps, talent pathways, and inter-club events. We see it as a resource sharing, coordinating the funding applications and ownership of any shared resources across multiple clubs. We also see it as the best practice forum, offering a platform for committee members to share governance and operation knowledge to strengthen club administration. So they are some of the purposes of that administrative layer. So we'll go into what it could look like. So here you are, quite zoomed in there of your little your photo of Auckland. Hopefully I got you all in there. It's kind of hard to get some of the boundaries. But here we are. This is what Auckland area looks like. So as you can see, you've got New Zealand Pony Club at the top. You've got your Auckland area. Then you've got one club with branches, with the 5 branches underneath. And then you've got the 5 standalone clubs. The numbers in the side are the numbers of the membership. That's adults and riders, not technical members, as of the day that I took these numbers. So these figures may have changed slightly. So when we're going into the modelling of what it could look like, please understand these are just examples and no way, shape or form what we're saying must happen, because this is where we need you. Are there any questions on this? Hopefully I've got everyone there.
You've got 2 Waiheke Islands there.
I'm
Oh,
loving
brilliant.
we're represented, Kate. We're going well.
You are well
Excellent.
represented.
Look
No,
at us.
no, I'm getting rid of that straight away. So
God.
perfect.
Oh, you got rid of this already.
Just one of you. You're done. There you go. This is the good thing about having a live document. Now let's hope it goes back to where it needs to be. Okay,
Oh,
perfect. Okay. So these are just some of the ideas that other people have given us. So we're just playing with different things. Some places are saying to us, well, we actually really like having the overarching area as our second layer. So we actually want to keep our area. So we can only have 3 layers, so we're going to keep our area. If you were doing that on your current numbers and you were, oops, what happened? Sorry, it's gone. Has it gone black for you as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Beauty of a live document, Lizzie.
No, it's what I do normally. So it's my internet tonight is being a little bit tricky. Okay. Here we go. I'll just make this bigger. Oh, it's really slow. Because I've got a husband home doing things like gaming.
Naughty.
Okay.
Tell him
Sorry,
to
I'll
get
just,
off the machine.
Yeah.
yeah, he thinks he has a right to use the internet as well. Okay, I'll just go with that. Is that okay? Because I don't want to just jump in. So based on that, if you were doing this and you have Auckland as your area, basically all of your clubs could then become the club layer and stand and just be by themselves. So instead of having Auckland Manukau as a club, the Auckland Manukau clubs are now standing by themselves as independent clubs. So they've got the club and then Auckland as the area and then NZPCA. Based on this, basically, based on these numbers, everyone is big enough. Are there any questions about this? So in this situation, if Auckland Manukau no longer is a club and you've got club assets going into those 5 branches, it would be up to you to decide. I've had in the past people in other areas say to me, well, what we'll do is there's 5 branches, we're going to divide the assets in 5 ways and they're going to go downwards into those 5 clubs. I've had other ones go, oh, we're going to proportion it over average our membership over the last 5 years and do it that way. I've got other ones going, well, actually, we want to put those resources from the club upwards into the area. That is your guys' decision, as long as it's fair and agreed upon. Any questions on that?
So because this obviously affects, on this prototype, this affects Auckland Manukau probably the most.
Yeah.
Would the funds from Auckland Manukau and the events that Auckland Manukau has had, which is inter-club, one of them is inter-club and one is the major fundraiser, would their resources, and it's only financial, they don't actually have any physical assets, they only have monetary assets, would that then go back down to all the clubs in the existing Auckland Manukau?
Yeah.
And then each one of those what was branches maybe run the event. Is that how you would see it happening?
That's absolutely up to you guys, but that sounds like a fair and logical way. Or what you could also do is say, actually put the funds, you could also go the funds upwards to Auckland and go, okay, these can sit in this fund over here in this special account with a, you know, basically, what do you call it? A trustee going, this has to be used this way.
earmark.
However you felt that the money should be used. But we're saying it's completely up to you, but we just want to see you get to decide how the funds go up or down or where they should go. But absolutely, we've had conversations with other people and they're like, we could actually still do our inter-club events. We could still have our club events and invite, you know, the old Auckland Manukau clubs. We could even go further afield and have the Auckland clubs to actually run an event. You know, you don't have to be an incorporated society, as in the team running the event don't have to be an incorporated society.
Just to go on that, Kate, because this is one that's gone around in Waitemata Rodney a number of times, and because they said, look, we like the idea of having clubs and individuals, but our districts still are really good for getting teams together when we want to do inter-club events, because that's where we actually get enough riders to make it worthwhile to form a team. And you can still, and I said, well, and we could still do that. We would just have a district coordinator who would be a person, most likely a mum appointed, who would help look at those teams, pull them together in the same way that the DC does now. And they could still compete under the same colours, the same uniforms, whatever. They don't need an incorporated society for that. However, what it does mean is they don't have a specific bank account attached to that team. So any fundraising or the likes, if they're wanting to do that, they will run through one of the subsidiary clubs. So, for example, Warkworth might do it on behalf of the Warkworth district up here in Waitemata Rodney, and they'd pull those together and they'd have some people from Matakana, from Warkworth, and if somebody wanted maybe from one of the other clubs in the area just to say, hey, now we've got a team, that's going to be Warkworth to go into the Waitemata Rodney inter-club activities, because they do a lot of those. So it can still be done. The organisation stays pretty much exactly the same as it is now. It just doesn't have a bank account or a specific incorporated society along with its normal reporting requirements. It's a little bit more informal in how it's run, but it's still there.
So would that be kind of like, it would sit as a cluster? Is that what you're saying? That would be an ideal situation, cluster?
It wouldn't necessarily sit as a cluster, because they said they don't want to have all of the admin associated with just doing that level. They're still wanting to run a competition, but they're only wanting to run a competition. They don't want to do bank accounts. They don't want to do accounts. They don't want to have monthly meetings. They just want to be able to go, we've got a show hunter team. Here's my 8 kids that are going into it. And that's it. And we're done. I'm not doing anything else. Memberships, we'll pull it all into a bank account and get it paid. But we don't need a cluster to do that. We don't need that next level. All we need is a nomination from somebody to be the organizer. The same way your travelling team for area has a nominated manager, it would be the same kind of thing. We'd nominate a manager, they'd pull the team together, and that would be the person who'd run it.
I think the big thing here is when we originally presented it, we looked at clusters versus areas, and a lot of our early modelling with people is that they would rather keep their area and their branches become clubs and their clubs stay as clubs. So, you know, a cluster model, and I've got one down here further, is when you break up the Auckland area. And can Auckland area just continue as it is? Absolutely. It can continue as it is, but Auckland Manukau cannot, because if we looked up here, that would be 1, 2, 3 layers here. Auckland Manukau could still be the club, and these guys just be venues, and that's on the next page. But we only want you sitting on at most 2 committees, or so you'd be on the committee of Meadowbank and Auckland, or Totara Park and Auckland, Clevedon or Auckland, just like Clevedon is now. Nothing would change. Oh, sorry, no. Waiheke Island, Whitford, Papatoetoe, Point Way and Waiheke Island. Oh, it's 2 of them there. Nothing much will change there. It's the change would be up here. I'm just going to fix that.
But again, just on that one, and Mayor, this is the one where you said in here, most clubs in Auckland have had challenging experiences with the council as they look to rationalise the number of pony clubs leasing land. This is where we run into potential issues on that one, where we say we've got Auckland Manukau is the club, and it's got venues at Meadowbank, Totara Park, Mangere, because
especially in your area.
In the Auckland Council, and I know because I'm having the same conversations with Auckland Council, they'd say, well, you only need one area, you can just combine all of these clubs. So in some ways, you're better to have the clubs, as we're saying, at that lower level. That next level up, that's to be decided, but that doesn't change the issues around, or that doesn't create any further problems around the rationalisation. In some ways, it makes it a little bit easier because now, rather than having some of these potentially identified on paperwork as branches, they are specifically identified as clubs. And so they aren't linked to anything else. They are very standalone in their presentation, which makes it potentially a little bit easier to go to the council and say, this club really should have some land to do its activities on. But that's something specific to Auckland Council. Anna, you had a question.
Yeah, thanks. I'm at Mangere, and I think it's actually because I watched the Wairemata Rodney one today, so I think it's on Lizzie's next slide. But just on this issue of leases, I think the other question I had about this concept of sort of one club, many venues, it relates to the practicality of running those venues. So I absolutely agree that if, for example, we were to say Auckland Manukau is one club with venues, let me just take 2, Totara Park and Mangere, both on council-owned land and licences. If I were council, I'd be immediately saying, well, why do you need 2 places for your kids? Just put all your kids in one of those places and we'll have the other one back to put into our regional parks. So I absolutely agree with that. But the second practicality for me that I kind of been pondering is how that one club and one committee administers those 5 venues, hypothetically, and it's not, I think, something I'm particularly in favour of, just being, a part of a club that is running a fund.
I'd like to say on that, Anna, we're not suggesting that. This is one that's come up because there are parts of New Zealand where that will work. They don't have the same issues with Auckland Council that we do.
No.
They don't have the same issue. They actually have councils that are saying, hey, we've got some land. If you guys want to use it, you're welcome to it. Rather than us saying, we've got to fight for every square metre. So what we've got to be careful of here, and this is the big thing, we're not saying that this is the right way to do it for Auckland. You guys have to tell us what the right way is for you, but you also can't tell us what the right way is for everyone else. These are options that we've got to be able to create because for some parts of the country, they work. They may not work here, but for some parts of the country, they do.
And I'm not suggesting what might work in other places. It's actually a question, which was under that model, whether those venues where they do work are grazing facilities or land. So for example, in Auckland, we have Clevedon operates as a branch, it has land that it has the use of, but doesn't have grazers on those lands. Both Totara Park and Mangere have grazers. So Mangere, for example, we're running a 16-hectare farm with grazing horses adjacent to the regional park. And if you had one club, many venues, you suddenly are running more than one farm, and I wouldn't envy that
Okay.
committee.
Yeah, so don't do that.
So can I jump in there? So number one, really, really important to understand that, and you probably know it, having grazing, any grazing issues or grazing contractual requirements that a club has with its members, nothing to do with New Zealand Pony Club. So if there was ever a dispute about grazing, I just basically go, sorry, not us. But in the situations where we know it is working, so South Otago, where Balclutha, Owaka and Clinton merged, they still had enough people on the ground in Balclutha, Owaka and Clinton to do maintenance. It wasn't a fact that they didn't have enough members. It was just, let's pull together and have one committee distributing over 3 venues. So they seem to have been operating it well for them, and they have rallies every couple of weeks at Balclutha. They don't have a rally every week. There's nothing in the requirements that you need to have a rally every week. You guys decide how many rallies you do. So they'll sit there and go, okay, South Otago committee, we've got 1 head coach instead of 3 head coaches. We've got 1 pool of volunteers. Actually, let's do one at Owaka. Oh, actually, next time we're going to do it at Owaka too, because Clinton's out with lambing or whatever it is, and it works for them. Same up in Northland with the Monganui was the merger of Kaitaia and Awanui, and actually the council, being Northland, different council, said we want you to keep the land and we all support the merger and understood. So they sold it a different way to their council, but councils are so different, and I work with councils everywhere, and they're just completely different.
On these ones, again, you structure your committee to support your activities. So there's nothing to stop it in here. What worked for them? Well, it worked for them because they needed 1 head coach. They needed half the coaches, and they changed their rally plans. They didn't have 3 rallies a week at each one of these sites. They have 1 rally a fortnight at sites that move around, and their kids can move around between these ones depending on where they can get to, who's available on farming, who's got what sport activities, and they'll often run them on a full day on a Saturday. So it's not a 1.5 hour on a weekday night. It's a Saturday day going through a number of things.
And we've also got clubs that don't have venues. We've got clubs that are completely nomadic. There's nothing in pony clubs stating that you must have a venue to be a club. So they just have arrangements, and 1 week, so me and Katikati here, 1 week might be at someone's farm, and it's usually someone who's got their own public liability insurance, but actually because it's Pony Club Rally, it's covered under that. So it might be at my farm down the road, it might be at the beach, it might be at the domain. So they just work it in. But that completely depends on you guys. You're so lucky to have amazing venues where you can have grazing and you can really support your riders, because you know, if you all needed your own land, it's not the same as me down here in the Bay of Plenty or Dana in the Waikato.
And
Yeah,
key thing is,
so I
they
think
make-
that's what the Anna's saying as well, is we are spending an inordinate amount of time battling with Auckland Council and all the different clubs to actually retain even what we have. So it's, if you're saying talk like for like, we're very different metro environment where the clubs are actually fighting to just keep the status quo, rather than, you know,
And
so that's what we're looking
why-
for. And we don't want this to be, we don't want this to be a distraction from what the ultimate aim of what Pony Club is to provide services. I think that's what just makes sure that we're not committal or think through the full consequences of a change. We're going to go knock effects that can happen to the fundamentals of what the services we're providing.
And that's why in here, what we're saying as a national body, we can't dictate what works to you for your pony club, because it's going to depend on, and we, again, keep in mind, all of these work at the moment for these areas because their committees and their members support that structure and make it work. What we are doing here is we're saying these are options. Now, I'm going to say I don't think a club with having these areas where they're a club and there's a multiple of venues, that's not going to work in Auckland because of the council. So it's not an option. It's
But I've
not
got to
something that
present
would,
it.
So I think just very quickly to go back, I agree that I was actually making a very different point, which is that I understand that that NZPCA and the entire educational pony club competition structure is independent of, sees itself as independent of grazing, but actually on the ground, it's the same group of volunteers that are running the fund, provide the grazing facility, as are providing the pony club activity and facility. And that was really the point that I was making, that if you you know, under that structure, which it sounds like is not that popular possibly anyway in Auckland, you really have got to also not just be looking at who's coordinating the joint rally and all of that, but also the fact that these pieces of grazing land, in some, not all cases, still have to be. So it was a separate point.
and there's still going to, but that's the thing, you're going to have a requirement on your committee that you're going to have to be aware of those contracts, you're going to have to manage them, you're going to have to deal with all of the other stuff of having these grazers on your land, the health and safety and everything that's associated with it.
That doesn't change constitutionally.
No,
that doesn't
but
change. And
many venues, rather than thinking about one lease, one set of grazers, you're going to have
well,
to be thinking about five.
yes and no, because if you think about these clubs that are doing it well, if you look at their committees, these are groups of farmers that are used to having multitudes of lease blocks. They're used to being nomadic. They're used to health and safety plans, dealing with grazing, dealing with contracts, dealing with contractors. So in their minds, it's actually a simple, we say it's too hard. For them, it's actually relatively simple to manage that because that's what they do. And so we can't, on here, we can't say, and I don't quite get your point, Anna, because when I look at you, the way I'm hearing it is you're saying managing the grazing is too hard if you're one branch, if you're a club with multiple locations. But other clubs do it, and they do it successfully, and they do it well.
We make heaps, but we're also not experienced farmers. Anyway,
and that's the thing. What I'm saying is it doesn't work for you. That doesn't make it wrong. It just means it's not something that you should be looking at.
Thanks.
No,
I'm criticizing it in areas where it works.
So there was just
and
a
that's
question.
All we're saying. We want something that's available for areas where it works and where it's appropriate. And if it doesn't work for your area, don't do it.
Someone just asked, how do we divide? Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
How do we divide grazing assets and pony club assets? You don't, because they're actually the assets of the pony club, even though you do grazing. We just do not get involved with the conflict of grazing. Contractually, you've decided to do that, but if you've done that as a part of your assets, they're part of your assets.
Yeah, thanks. I think we can just move on.
So that was a question that came up. Someone just asked that, so I had to answer their question. Okay, so obviously every area is different, and this is where, you know, this is just examples, but this would be that you've still got the area, but now you've got some people, and this is potentially not you, because you've all got really big clubs where some people might decide to merge. Or in your situation, you've got a club on the outside, and now I'm not saying they are, this is just a name to jump in and just show. They're like, actually, we want to become together, and we want to say, actually, we're going to be Clevedon and Hanua, because we're only 10 minutes away from each other. And Hanua's like, okay, we want to, and I'm not saying they are, just an example, we want to become of Auckland. So they might become a new name, or they might become Clevedon Hanua. And the same here, absolutely an example, Beachlands might say, oh, well, we want to be part of Whitford. These are scenarios that we're not saying that you guys want to do, because as we know up here, you are actually structurally, all very large, and you've got really nice independent layers and structure. So that is just what some other people are doing. They're like, okay, it's the perfect time that we're going to become venues, and that's happening. I know in Dunn Tokoroa, they're talking to me at the moment about how they can merge, and they want to do it before they finish, but they're also on farmland. So that's just all the ideas that you guys as an area need to discuss. Or thirdly, this is where a cluster comes in. Suddenly we don't have Auckland, and we don't have Auckland as an area, but we become a central, an eastern, or a southern, or something. You've split it up to being, and I don't know if these are in the right places, because I was just trying to remember my geographic of Newmarket down to Howick. You know, you could look at becoming another form of a second layer and have your central branches, or you could have your eastern branches or your southern branches. So basically, what you decide to look like is completely up to you guys and discussion, and we're here to facilitate that conversation.
So just a quick question on, say, the Hanua Clevedon one, where Hanua is in Franklin at the moment and Clevedon's in an Auckland area. Is there any process they have to go through to get, is it a branch decision to change it? I mean,
so
the concept of the areas I know is kind of
normally,
yeah.
I'd say it's not possible. Normally, I'd say that is ridiculous, but this is opened, and I actually said to Katikati, my own town branch, where I used to be the president and I've been the patron, no longer even involved, because I'd be far too biased. They'd win all the horsemanship. But they said to me last year they wanted to leave Tauranga and go to Franklin Thames Valley, and I said, absolutely not. That is ridiculous. But now, because we're doing this whole restructure and looking at that, they're like, can we do it? Absolutely. How will we go about that? Well, we'll sort out a process where it will be, they have to part of this, they'll have a meeting, they'll form a resolution, they'll all sign it, it will come to the board will go solved. I can't state that they'll take any Bay of Plenty assets with them. I think your area will probably say, no, you're not taking any of our assets, but I'm not sure. The area might go, absolutely, here's your portion of the assets, you take it with you. But they will have their assets that they already have that will come with them. I know in Northland, they think that the top of Waitemata Rodney should join them. You know, so, and I've even got a whole new area being proposed, like a whole new area is being proposed.
So, and just on that process, there is a process already in the in our regulations for this one. So, and as Lizzie said, it's actually relatively straightforward. When you're coming to these parts, the key thing is you get you basically do a resolution supported by whatever area you're moving to that you want to move. You pass it to the board, and the board say yes or no. That's pretty much the process that is that's in the system as it stands today, and that'd be pretty much the way it'd move forward. If we had enough clubs come together and go, actually, we want to form this area, and this is going to be our new cluster area, whatever you want to call it, chances are the board's just going to look at it and go, if that's what works for you, off we go. We can change these as time moves on, but
how is that going to align to the national competitions? Because are you going to change the areas potentially, or you would stay with your regions and we'd have, how would that split?
We've been asked to do a massive review. So we did a massive review. We sent out wonderful surveys, and only 3 areas responded out of 15 about the Champs Week. So really hard. Everyone says change, and then we get 3 responses. So, but what we could see is that the biggest barrier to competition is the concept that we have to be in teams. So step 1, we need people who have got their NQSs to feel like that they have the ability to go to champs. So, you know, thinking of badminton, just on the weekend, we had New Zealand riders there. They all rode as individuals. Let's say, though, at the same time, those New Zealand riders were riding, they're all New Zealanders, but there was a team competition on the end, but they weren't actually in a form team to start. So we didn't have Janelle, Tim and Caroline, but
Yeah.
we all rode for New Zealand. But our top three were the scores. We would have had Tim, that new girl, I can't remember her name.
Sam Lexington.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and we would have had riders, they would have been the ones to be scores. We don't know. TME are just chucking around all of these ideas, but you'd
Okay.
still be going to champs, you'd still be riding for Auckland because that's where you're geographically based. Just like at the under 25 dressage, my daughter is from Waikato, Dana's daughter's from Waikato. They all go, they ride for Waikato, and the people who do the best do the best. And if they've had a shocker, we're trying to be.
I think, Jodie, this is
Trying
a
to
bit
get
as
that.
well. This is a bit of the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
You're asking us how a competition's going to work without giving us what the structure is that we're going to have the organisation under. We can't really do one without the other, and the competitions kind of flow on from getting the structure sorted.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the first thing we want to do is get the structure sorted of, right, with all of the, because keep in mind, we've had these regions for a while now, but the makeup within them is very, very different, and the numbers of members within them is very, very different now. So it is probably the right time to look at it. What's that going to mean? Well, we've got a lot of things. There's a lot of history behind a lot of these areas that we don't want to lose. There's a lot of cups. There's a lot of prestige that's attached to them that we don't want to lose. So we don't want to throw that out. But we also don't want to carry on with something that isn't appropriate now, considering how our membership has changed.
Also,
So-
you guys, oh, sorry.
So I
They've
think
got- yeah.
you go,
You
Lizzie.
go, John. No, you go. I like what you're saying.
The key thing I wanted to say on this is that I can't tell you what comps look like because, to be brutally honest, we don't know. We've been told, to Lizzie's point, we've been told so many times the current structure doesn't work, but nobody has given us any feedback on what they would like to see. What I am hoping is if we get enough engagement with the structure and with this side and people start talking about it, maybe when we next ask the question of, right, now that we know what we look like, what do you guys want for competitions? Somebody might actually answer our questions when they go out.
And we also know in your situation, you just don't have Hanua right there. You
Yes,
drive
Ardmore.
past Ardmore to get
Ardmore.
to Hampton.
Within
Yeah,
5 days away. Yep.
so we, you know, or can I be the devil and say, okay, instead of some of you staying and them coming to Auckland, some of you might want to go to Franklin Thames Valley. I don't know. I don't know what works for you.
Or maybe that gets split and it's different again.
Yeah.
Franklin. Yeah.
Franklin
So
Thames Valley split to other parts and go through. We don't know what it's going to look like, and we need you guys to tell us which clubs sit logically where. How do you work better together?
And you guys are massive as in numbers, but what White Matter Rodney has kind of suggested is, you know, and you don't have to do what anyone else has done. They've gone for more of this structure, but then it comes down to, oh, hang on a minute, we're having an Auckland meeting now. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 clubs. That means we need to have, we don't have to have 9 representatives, but we've got to have 7 as a quorum. Only 2 people can to not be there and things like that. So they are all the discussions that come about. But what we wanted to do with you tonight is just show you some of the ideas to ponder. And as we said, we're all so different because what works for me, you know, I don't think I'm going to be a Bay of Plenty club anymore. I'm going to be I'm going to be at the Franklin Thames Valley, but being at the bottom of the Coromandel doesn't really matter. But as long as the kids can go to Pony Club, in that case, those riders won't be representing BOP anymore. They'd be, but that's the whole point of this discussion. And these are the discussions that you guys have got to have.
Okay. Thank you.
Is staying the same an option? Do we have to change?
You have to, well, currently under our proposed structure, if we're going to lose one constitutional layer, one structural layer, you do have to change, because if you look here, we've got 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers, 4 layers. Okay, point-wise, you don't have 4 layers, but it's this layer here. We've got to have 1 layer less for the clubs with the branches within a club. So Papatoetoe, Whitford, Waiheke Island, Pointways, if you went with this, nothing changes for you. The one that the big changes are for is that Auckland Manukau Club has gone, but Meadowbank, Totara Park, Mangere, Beachlands and Clevedon are now up there in the club structure.
So they have to change. They can't say
They
we
don't
like it
have
like
to,
this.
so they're not going to be changing as in the operation. They will just not have Auckland Manukau above them. Everything that they currently do is exactly the same as everything you currently do, say at Waiheke Island, as in what you teach and exactly that. So all they would be doing is the same. They just wouldn't have the Auckland Manukau club level above them.
As a branch, they are required to be an incorporated society. They are required to have an account. They are required to have a committee. They are required to have a minimum of 15 members, of which I think was it 8 writing members. That's what they're required to do. So that doesn't change for the Meadowbanks, the Totara Park. So from an incorporated society, they keep their incorporated societies at whether they decide they want to be an Auckland Manukau cluster and go straight to NZPCA, or whether they want to be part of the Auckland area, that's the question that's up for discussion.
So they could
Okay.
actually look
That
like
they might not change. They might and just say, actually, we're not part of the Auckland cluster anymore. We go straight to NZPCA, and if that works for them, then that can be an option for them.
Okay. And if a layer is unravelled like that, what happens when a club gets too small to function alone?
then they have to close or merge with another.
The same thing that happens when the branch gets too small as it stands today. So again, there's nothing changes at that lowest level.
Yeah. Okay.
And so and this is the big thing that we're wanting to try and get across to our members. For the vast majority of the people that are interacting with Pony Club, nothing changes for them. They still have a club. They still turn up there for their rallies and they still do their activities in that space.
Okay.
What changes potentially
And so
is that next level up with the competitions and those sorts of things. But again, maybe not.
So the other thing to consider or just be aware of is, so I'm from Waiheke Island, so we nearly closed because we went down to like 3 members a few years back. We kept going, but we kept going because of the support of Auckland area as well. So it's not just about eventing. We talked about this in our meeting last week. It's organizational knowledge, support, wider access to coaches, wider access to examiners, all these sort of things. So I also think we have to be mindful of the role that an area plays. I know you're not asking to change those areas, but I think it's quite limited to think of it only as events. It's actually institutional knowledge.
Absolutely.
The areas provide, and that's just something else to be mindful of in these structures. That if you're a biggish club, you probably don't really need it, but we wouldn't have kept going if we hadn't had Auckland area and the support that we've had from a number of people on this call tonight. And just so I just think there's something to be mindful of there.
100%. That is where we see the majority purpose, the main purpose of that cluster.
My other thing to think about maybe is something, Lizzie, that we take offline separate to all this constitutional stuff is also, I do a lot of infrastructure planning for Auckland. We are expecting so many more hundreds of thousands of people in the Rodney area and in the Jury area, etc., thinking about where's the expansion and thinking about that as well. So separately to this constitutional side, I think there's a play.
And again,
that New Zealand Polish have to think about.
Your point on Waitemata Rodney, that's the growth in there. That's a big concern that we have in the Waitemata Rodney area committee at the moment, because it's impacting on
and the same for South Auckland and the same for South Auckland.
Each of us are looking at it in our own little areas.
Well, there's just while you've been sitting here, when someone suggested, that's another thing that could happen. You could say Auckland Manukau is going to stay as like one cluster, and then this be another cluster over here. It's completely open to you guys, but our rationale is that less volunteer time sitting in a committee meeting doing the same jobs, especially if you had been, and for many of you it won't change, but in this scenario, if you're sitting on the Clevedon committee, the Auckland Manukau committee, and the Auckland committee, we know how much time, and we do know that there are double ups within the Auckland committee doing the same similar jobs down in these other subcommittees here.
Yep.
So you guys have given lots of different scenarios, and you can come up with completely different scenarios. This is just me, with you having a bit of a play. These slides will all be in your pack. Nothing is a definite. This is consultation. Okay, should we go to the next slide and see? So that's just repeating. We'll do questions at the end. That is consultation. It's not final voting. And when you're giving us your exit survey, do you support the 3 layers like we just proposed? And really interesting, in your area, you've only got 1 club with branches. Wairemata Rodney is basically all clubs with branches and 1 club. Waikato's a mix. It's really absolutely different from each one, and you can go and look at the slide, the PowerPoints of all the others, and at the end they'll all be up. So what's your role? Your role is to share this information with your clubs, branches, and areas. And please, if you do hear misinformation, can you please say, hey, that's not quite correct, or get them to come to us. Please ask questions. I'm happy to answer your emails. On the weekend this week, I'm heading up to the 75th of Bay of Islands, so I won't be answering you potentially on the weekend. But we try and get to you straight away. But we're here. Book a time. Sometimes it's easier to sit online like this and do some modelling. Submit your feedback via that survey, and I'm going to actually show you the survey. So where can you find all this information? Oh, okay. We are setting up a one-stop shop constitutional update page, resources, constitutional update. So you've got all the links for all the meetings. And as soon as your recording's there, currently it'll just take you to the homepage. It will be locked into here. It will be a live link. Come to any of these meetings. Unfortunately, I could not fit them all in within the month of May. These 2 are right at the end because no one really wanted to do a Friday or Saturday night. This is the survey. I was willing. This is the survey. You don't have to give us your name. You don't have to give us your email. We do need what area you're in. We need your role, and then do you support? Are you neutral? Not sure? You strongly opposed? The impact, if you've got it. The ones with the asterisks are the ones that you must do. And if you've got any other comments about disputes or
anything you want us to
please
think about, anything
put
that
it in
you've got
here.
a question for the board, that's your free form box to
Yeah.
give us feedback on, hey, we think you've missed something, or it'd be really cool if we could have this in, or actually I've got some suggestions for team events and I'd like to put them in.
Yeah.
Put them in there, and that's where we can capture all of that sort of stuff.
On our website, if you've got questions that haven't been picked up, please go there or just send them to me. Now, this document here is massive now. I'm just basically adding from each night the questions at the bottom. So we had here that we wanted to include non-members in the Constitution, so to change it from rider to member. So we've just got little bits here that we've got to make sure that we do as well. So this is your one-stop shop of Constitution information. The other one that I really wanted to push, I know that you'll all know about conference. This is where you're voting. Remember, as clubs, in the current Constitution, you are meant to come to conference. I know some of you say that we haven't budgeted for it. I've tried to keep it as reasonable as possible. It's actually, I think, cheaper than last year with no nominate fees. So the board has really helped with the funding of the no nominate fees and keeping it down to a reasonable rate. If you're in Christchurch, the AGM's free. We are definitely 100% having really practical workshops. The biggest changes that we used to have an area forum only on the Friday, it's a national forum. It's open to all. It's not going to be repeated on Saturday in the AGM. So if you've got ideas that are not remits, but they're ideas for events or things that you think we could do better, coaching, all of that, please just don't make it an event one. Please come and ask us anytime. That is where you need to come to. We can help you with funding applications. If you get to us soon, we can share with you an invite, the conference registration, and all the forms there for awards and items of business. So I'm really doing a push on that because we are voting, at the AGM.
Are you going to have any online facilities for the AGM?
No, I can't. It's just impossible. We're such a small head office with 2.5 staff that we cannot actually run an online AGM. It's just
it's cost
absolutely
prohibitive for us to do that. We're almost quadrupling the cost of that AGM, and we just do not have the funds for the size of the organisation. You do have, although it's not online, you can do electronic voting. So if you aren't going to make it and you can't make it, the benefits are in the conference. There's going to be a massive plan in there. The feedback I've had from everybody who's been to the last few has been that these are amazing. So
it's going to be even better.
Please look at it as an opportunity to meet, to network, to share practice, and to learn some practical sessions about how to do things at Pony Club. For an AGM, if you're not going to be there, please make sure that you have got your electronic voting forms into Lizzie prior to the AGM happening, because your voice must be heard at this situation.
One thing
There
we
are
do
no proxy votes.
No, one thing we do after conferences, we do put the presentations online, but it's not the same, but they are online. So that's all we can offer as a small organisation. We can't even do area forums online because we just don't have the technology. We have an office with 3 computers. And we're all remote, by the way, as well. Okay, so that was a push for that. So is there any more questions, or Todd, were there any questions that stood out for you to share that aren't in the meeting chat, or people have still got to ask? We really appreciate all your input, guys. So this is ask away.
I think by and large we've covered most of them as we spoke on. Fundamentally, I'd like to reiterate, for your coal-face parts of the organisation, there's very little change. They still need to be an incorporated society, rather than calling themselves a branch at the lowest level. For those ones that it applies to, they call themselves a club. At the next level up, that changes, and what that looks like is TBC. But fundamentally, for most of our members, it doesn't make a difference. Lizzie's already talked about asset splits, and by and large will be guided by you, with the key overriding being it's got to go to Pony Club members. So it's got to be it's got to stay within the Pony Club. We had a little bit of a discussion around the obligations of the geographic cluster. Mayor, I think your points were very valid, that the key things that we're looking for in these ones is that sharing of best practice, that support network, that ability to support each other when you're going through things like lease negotiations and all of that sort of stuff, to share how you guys are doing it. When it comes to hosting champs, clustered teams, events, that's all a work in progress, because until we really know what the structure looks like, we can't really say how much of that changes, if anything. There was a comment there around the
So,
audit level.
So if we, sorry, a quick question. So just to be clear then, based on those permutations that you've just presented, is the action on top of us now as Auckland area to go back and go, what's the pros and cons for different permutations if you did the 3 level? And what's the structures you could do? And then do we have to go to a vote in our constitution within our area? I'm just
No.
You will need to go to a vote at some stage. The key thing, and when it comes to an SGM and going through there, you will need to vote on your club constitution and on the constitution for the next level above that you become part of.
But right now, talking about what we're doing right now, we want from each of you as individuals, do you support the concept of a 3-layer change? That is our most important. Or not, and if it was a 4-level changed, then we wouldn't be continuing on the 3-level change. Once we've got that, and that July, August, September, October, that is where you'll be looking at what Auckland area looks like. So you don't need to know exactly tonight what Auckland area is going to look like, but you know sort of what it would look like if we went down to a 3-layer system as per that tier. But when you go to the conference, you as a club delegate, so if you're your club's delegate, you'll be your membership, your members will be saying to you, we want you to vote yes, or we want you to vote no. But we're hoping that our survey that captures everyone in these meetings will give us a clear indication if we're going yes or no, because we know all of you are not on every committee. So that's what we need now, a general consensus of, are we heading in the right direction or not? We've had this awesome opportunity to meet you all and get more feedback than we ever do.
And but fundamentally, yes, you do have an obligation now to talk to your members, to understand what their perspectives are, because otherwise you're not going to be able to tell us whether you support the 3-level or the 4-level.
Okay, 2 questions. I love the last question
there. I'm going to take the second question. You can take the first question.
I'll take the first one. I'll go first. So yes, at the forum on the Friday, it's a national forum, so everyone can speak. So you can put in an item of business. If there are 10 of you with the same item of business, instead of listening to person A, person B, person C, person D, and hear it 10 times, we will collectively put you together and give you a presentation slot. So that's kind of why the 1st of July is important. So you've got at least a month to prepare your presentation. But yes, you get the right to speak at a forum versus in the past that it's only the area president and everyone else has to be quiet. I love that aspect. Go, Todd.
If a pony sub ceases to exist and they own their land, what would happen to their land? Well, that's an interesting one. At this stage, it would follow the rules of the existing assets. So it would go up to NZPCA, who would then work with the clubs in the area to decide the best place for that asset to sit. If there was land and it was owned by the pony club and that pony club ceased to exist, I can say that as a board member, I would be very, very reticent to get rid of that land. I would be looking at any way, shape or form to keep a pony club on that land and to make it work. So where does it go? It goes up to the national body, and then the national body decides where the best place is for that in the lower levels. And if we can, we then get somebody else to take it over and to run it. But I can pretty much say hand on heart, we would not be looking to sell it and give the funds back to anyone because land is too important.
We could all, imagine the developments, but we don't want to see that happen. We want to see, and I know I've got clubs in my area. I've only got one club that owns their own land, and at times they scoot really close to the numbers. And that is the reason that they go and get more people and more numbers, because they know they have an asset. And I know the history of it, and it's been in Pony Club for 40 years. And that's where it will stay, in Pony Club for the members.
And we would be pushing very, very hard to make sure that that pony club did not cease to exist.
Mm.
We'd be doing everything we can
We-
to work with you.
We do monitor. I monitor really closely the pony clubs, not just the yearly figures. I monitor them.
Lizzie does a
Sometimes
report to
daily.
the board every month on the membership levels and where everybody sits and who she's following up.
And, I've got a list that I do follow up. So, once you, we don't come in immediately and go, oh, you're under 15. We work with you, we give you time. It's when you're under 15 and you're down to 3 and you won't answer emails and you're no longer offering, that we have to get a little bit firmer in the communications. But no one in Auckland is in that situation. But, we believe in Pony Club.
Yes.
Moana.
Andrew, Moana, I don't know.
Oh, Andrew.
You're muted, Andrew. I can't hear you.
Sorry, they're having a meeting, so I drew the short straw, I guess, to sit and listen. Just so I'm clear, so I'm not a writer, by the way, for everyone else on the call. So I'm just the dumb dad who bought his daughter a donkey. If I read the draft, if I just replace the word cluster with area, then that is the structure that the Constitution's currently drafted as. Yeah, okay, that's cool. You mentioned earlier, I'm going to be boring and just stick to the.
Can I just jump in there? We just use the word cluster to try and get some differential change, and maybe that was, in our wisdom or not wisdom.
No, that's cool. It makes sense.
And everybody came back to area and said we actually like areas. So.
Okay, that's cool. That makes sense when you read it. At the beginning you talked about voting structure, membership structure, and organisational structure. So I was just going to be boring and stick to those. You mentioned riding members being the voting power, if you like, or holding the voting sway in the organisation. The way that I read 5.13 at the moment is drafted as member, and then if you go to definitions, member refers you to 4.3 and individual members, which are contained in 4.9. So the way that I read 5.13 as it's currently drafted isn't limiting voting to riding members, it's allowing all members to vote. Is it intentional, or is it not?
1 second, because it actually drops down into the voting side of it.
What's currently in our constitution is at debate of what was intended and what is currently voted on.
Because currently it says riding members, which is defined, but it's changed from riding members to members. So it sort of has constitutionally changed the voting makeup.
Yeah, and that's to do basically with some clubs potentially are very adult based.
Yeah,
with no youth organisation. So that is something that we need to look at and real clean up on what our membership definitions are and who gets to vote. As in voting structures for Pony Club, it's currently based prior to us on some form of voting based on your riding members' rates, and we'd be looking at that. We're looking at reviewing that on that electoral college.
So, and that's because we haven't done so. If you look at the way we've the new proposed constitution, the way it's working is we've also separated out adult members from guardian members and riding members. And the reason we've separated those is because as we move down the levels, the voting is going to sit with riding members over the age of 18 and guardian members who have that's where the votes for your committees and the likes at that club level are going to come about. Then at the cluster/area level, that'll be based on clubs. And then at the national level, it's based on clubs and cluster/areas.
So basically, as a parent of an under 18-year-old, I get to vote for them because I'm their guardian. As soon as they turn 18, they are the voting power because they are over 18.
And
Yeah,
then
I guess
under 23.
I guess the constitution at the moment for at that national level, because this is the constitution that we're talking about, at that national level, it talks about riding members being defined as 24 years, whereas currently 513's drafted as members.
And that's the thing. The biggest issue I had when I was drafting this, and this is one of the reasons I couldn't do a clean markup. There's inconsistent definitions of members between the constitutions and the various clauses within the constitution.
It's okay. Someone's got to draw the short straw and draft it, I suppose, Todd.
I think the youth members
I
was
had such a fun last few months.
So that kind of led into my one of my other questions. I got like 4 questions actually. Sorry, they were boring. The adult member and the horsemaster member, could they not be combined? I guess as it's currently written, it seems that you could qualify in both categories simultaneously.
Initially, we had them separated out. But the more we move forward, yes, we are looking at going, actually, we don't need that horsemaster's member.
Yeah, good.
So currently a horsemaster can't vote unless they're an adult member.
Yeah.
And then they shouldn't be voting anyway. So it's kind of like a mixed up.
Okay, that's cool.
So Todd is doing a nice big clean up, a laundry list of all the points I've written down, all the questions.
Because you could, I think it would be simple to have riding, or even if you called that youth, guardian and adult. That makes sense. Then within the adult,
we are looking at having a youth member and a guardian member.
Yeah.
And then there will be another membership category. How we refer to it, I don't know. And then we'll have the casual members, which still must remain, because they're the ones where they are coming on and using our
facility.
Yeah, centres or the likes for a rally or an event or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That so there's another draft. The next draft that'll come out will have a. Are you going to track change what you've done from this, or is it just going to be a clean draft?
We will do track changes from this version.
Yeah.
Because we've had a published version. We won't do, because I can do a markup on this one. I can't do a markup on the other ones.
Oh, yeah, cool. Okay, and then the last question was constitutionally the sort of proportionality vote gives a club a vote per 25 members, but caps out at 3 with 50. Not sure what the original logic was with that. Has there been any thought given to extending that out further beyond 3?
Yeah, so that was one of the questions I had. Particularly, I look at your club. I reckon Papatoetoe is one of those ones that gets potentially a little bit hard done by with its membership numbers in here. And one of my questions for people in here is, what does that look like now, considering we remove a layer? If you have these extra clusters and areas, so let's say that some of these guys go, actually, we're going to split these areas like we saw in here. Then if we see them split these areas and they all get an extra vote, is that fair? Do we not have votes at that level? Do we just hold votes at clubs? Do we say that actually it's 1 vote per youth member, and you have a portion of the 7,000 votes or whatever it is, and you get however many youth members you have as your portion? I'm open to options, or it's 1 vote per 10 youth members or whatever the case, or per 15 if that's the minimum that we need for a club. You get 1 vote per 15. I'm open to suggestions from people. Please feed them back, because I think that's one of the ones as well that we need to we need to make sure that we get tighter, so it is reflective of our members, and it also moves with our membership.
Yeah, no, it's that's good. So I mean, it's a big job, so I don't envy what you're doing, and I'm not going to get into political discussions about what should or shouldn't happen there. That's I'll leave that to the wife. I think
thanks a lot.
Removing the admin layer doesn't change, as you guys have said, doesn't change anything really for Papatoetoe. So that's not really anything to comment on, I suppose. And just going back to what you said earlier, it is $3 million for your and it's expensive. $3 million for your for your audited accounts.
For your expenses, and that's our unless you and we do have one or two where they are joint registers of charities, in which case then you fall under the Charities Commission's reporting thresholds. But for the vast majority, it's 3 million in expenses, which means for the vast majority, there is no longer an audit requirement.
Yeah. Awesome.
And to be fair, you also fall below the Chartered Accountant Review requirement. Yeah. Which I think comes in at about 500,000. So in those cases, it's just going to be a simple set of accounts submitted to the registrar and the head office every year.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Hey, thanks for that. I'll be quiet now. Thank you.
No,
good work, team.
Kate currently asked about, the voting rights of adult members. Kate, this is one of the messiest areas of the current constitution and so open to interpretation of who can vote and who can't vote. And you'll talk to different committees who were part of the writing and they're like, those people can't vote, but it's not written that way. So that is something that we are cleaning up of.
So how does it work though? So if you are an adult member and you are on a committee, you have a vote on that committee, but you cannot have a vote to vote yourself onto that committee. You must be voted on by people with votes. So it is one of those ones if you're on a committee, if you're a committee member on a committee, you have a vote on that committee. But you don't have a vote for nominating or for appointing people to those committees. Is that?
So that's, and I guess that's all about the hats that we wear and the lack of volunteers. As you know, I'm on various committees. My members
I've got
know.
the people like, my favourite one to point to is our committee members. We've got Marge and Lou. Neither of them have kids involved in Pony Club. They sit on our area committees and they sit on our club committees and they do massive amounts of work for our pony club, but they can't vote themselves onto those committees. But once they're on that committee, they have the vote as a committee member to get stuff done.
And they can be nominated to stay there. So like yourself, Denise, and Kate, you can stay there. You just have to be voted there, but you can't go and say, I'm going to nominate myself and be voted on.
But you can only be voted or nominated by a parent whose a child is under 18 or that 18-year-old to 25-year-old rider.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, and that's one of the things. So we've got committees, not you guys. We've got committees that have got no members and they're all voting each other on. And that is something we've got to really sort out and really clean up, and that's part of what we would have been doing it anyway, but it's just something that we've been noticing. So it's just about that, the rationale of the why, but no way, shape or form we're getting rid of people.
Often those ones are where the pony club has grazing and they've a whole heap of grays have come in because it's the cheapest grazing in the area, and they've slowly tried to take over the committees. And therefore the focus moves away from pony club and pony club purposes. And this is our way of ensuring that remains the key focus on our committees.
I think it's also just on that, Todd, the makeup of a club committee has to also consider what assets and what revenue that particular club might be using. Expecting a bunch of 18, 24-year-olds to adopt or assume fiduciary responsibility on a whole lot of stuff is not realistic. So some committees genuinely need adults there for a number of reasons to make sure they're operating responsibly.
Absolutely need adults, and they need the right people. They need people with the right experience to do those, which means that you'll be voting them on. 18 to 24-year-olds, to give them credit.
Oh, it'd be great.
We'll sit there and go, actually, I'm not the person who wants to be running this. I would much rather my parents did this, so I'm going to vote for my parent to keep doing it. So in those cases, and then the under 18s, well, they're going to be the parents voting anyway. The key one is making sure in our committees, and this is where the roles of our areas and clusters become incredibly important, have the skills and knowledge to know the pony club processes, to understand how we work, to make sure that carries on. And that's something we don't want to yeah, we don't want to get rid of.
Excellent.
The question that you just answered on what happens to land owned by a pony club if the pony club closes, will that be added to the Q&A on the NZPCA page so that I can report back correctly to our club?
Absolutely. So we talked about it, so it will be in the transcript, and
Thank
then so
you.
I'll pull it down.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And it will be in the minutes as well for tonight. So we do want you to share the minutes. I don't think I'm going to get them out tonight, to be honest.
That's okay. We
Feeling
won't
a
read
little
them tonight.
feeling a little bit tired, so not tonight. So
That's okay.
look out for those tomorrow. You'll have the slide decks and you'll have the minutes, and we'll add to the Q&A. But please, yeah, share, and please do say to them when they see the pictures of the modelling, they were only examples. So if I merged them or I did something like that, it was only example based on my very old knowledge of Auckland, where, you know, Chapel Downs was the road to Point View. It's not anymore. Rockby was in the middle of nowhere.
I think
It
your
kind of still
interpretation
is,
of
Lizzie.
Auckland area is very good, Lizzie.
I'm an Aucklander. I was born in Auckland.
Changed a bit.
And Brookby still is in the middle of nowhere, to be fair.
It has
You
a
need to come-
school
you
and
need-
it's
Yeah, you come to Katy then.
Well, I would just like to say, because I'm getting a little bit tired now, it's been a long day. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along tonight and
Yeah.
for these
Thank you.
the questions you've had. I've always appreciated good discussion back and forths, and I think there's been some good stuff raised. As Lizzie said, it's all going to be posted online. We're not going to edit anything out, so you'll get the full unfiltered version. Please ensure that it's shared far and wide to make sure that all of your members are aware of these discussions and have an opinion. And if they have an opinion, please get them to fill out the form. And
if you want to, come again to any of the others. Tomorrow night, we're in the Hawke's Bay, Waikato, Wairarapa, Wellington this week.
We have one tomorrow night, Lizzie. Oh my.
Yeah, Hawke's Bay. You don't have to come. You don't have to. It's like, it's a big commitment, but yeah, so.
Thank you very much for allowing us to have some voice and answering, I'm sure, some questions and giving us lots of ideas of where we need to take it to. So yeah, thank you, board and Lizzie, for all your support on this.
Oh, thank you. Hey, and
We're
any
looking forward
questions?
to hearing from you.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
Oh, we're here for it. And, you know, but so thank you for that. And we'll catch you all later. See you later.
Yep. Thanks, Lizzie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 See ya.
See ya. Okay, just stop record. You don't have to come to